Welcome to Escape the Noise, a podcast about hiking, mental health, and everything in between. I'm Joe Vogel, your host. We're coming to you from the Silicon Slopes studio in downtown Provo, Utah. Our guest this week, Mike Rife, a wellness influencer with over 50,000 followers on Instagram. Mike grew up in Utah before moving to South Korea for a few years as a child. He later returned to Korea as an LDS missionary. Shortly after returning, his mother passed away from ALS. Listen as he talks about how the mountains, hiking, and fitness have acted as a form of therapy and how he's trying to use those insights to help others through their own challenges. Just start there, just kind of with your Instagram presence and like what you're trying to do with that.
Yeah, it's a good place to start, I think. I really started posting randomly just last summer. I was just on a hike and I was just thinking, when you hike, you get so many thoughts that just come in. And I always say that hiking is great because it creates space for you to evaluate what's going on in your life and just kind of think through things. And so I always get these thoughts where I'm like, why are people doing things this way or that way? And I just posted a one-off video and, it kind of picked up some steam. And then after that, I was like, oh, maybe I should just post more of the stuff I think about when I hike. And it's really that simple. It's like, I don't have this, I'm not trying to it's not a business or anything for me, at least not yet. It's really just a place for me to kind of share what I'm thinking about, working through. And it's really just, how can people get out of their own way and live their best life? I feel like I'm trying to figure that out. And that's when I go hike, those are the things I think about and kind of the things that I share. So
I think that's one of the things that I enjoy about it, just following your content, is it doesn't feel preachy. It feels very exploratory. Like you're just trying to, share things that you've discovered or that you're thinking about or that you're exploring. And I think that's probably why it's resonating. So this was just a personal account that you just kind of transformed into, having some of these themes. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, if you look back, it was really just me posting a lot of pictures of me hiking for the longest time. Most of them on Timpanogos mountain. And then, it's kind of become a place for me to share what I'm learning. And I want to put out positivity and just like, I'm nothing special. And I feel like I've been able to live a really good life so far. And so I just feel like a lot of the content that I see, it's like some special person I don't know, they went to some university, they have this, and that. And it's like, well, of course they're going to succeed. And I feel like I'm just super average, dropped out of college. I couldn't get through college. It was too hard for me. And I've figured out how to live a good life.
What kind of makes, I guess it's a question all of us have to ask ourselves, is what is success, right? And reframing what that means, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, at least from what I've been able to pick up from you, like that's a question you're asking, right? And like thinking about it in more fundamental ways, right? It's not necessarily about degrees. It's not necessarily about status. It's not how busy you are, high profile job. It really is like, are you enjoying life, right? Are you finding balance? Are you finding fulfillment, right? And those are some of the things that seem to be what you're getting at in your posts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I always talk about how to succeed with anything, there's kind of two questions that I ask myself. Am I enjoying what I'm doing? Have I found a way to enjoy it? And it could be anything. Like some of the stuff I do for my job, it's maybe not that fun on paper, but can I find a way to enjoy that thing? So that's one. And then the other one is it sustainable? Can I keep it up long term? And I feel like when I ask myself those two questions with anything that I do, I get to the bottom of it really quick if like this is something I should be doing or not. or if I should change my strategy a little bit and approach it in a different way where maybe I can have more fun and I wasn't allowing myself to have fun with it before, or just tweaking how I do it so that I can keep it up.
And so what would you say, like, what are your kind of main, I mean, I think everybody, as a writer, I have like certain obsessions, right? Things that I constantly come back to. Seems like there are certain obsessions that you kind of focus on, right? Whether it's nutrition, like what are the things that you try to like come back to in what you post?
I think like health is one. And I feel like there's so many people that talk about health and it's like to get super jacked, or like there's always like this kind of more vain angle.
Right.
And for me, it's not so much that, although I do like to be fit. I feel like it's good for confidence. It's good to just be in a body that feels good to move around life in. But I think it's more so about removing health as an obstacle, or whatever it is that you're pursuing, whatever your goals are in your life. I just realized like in my mid-20s where I had no strategy for health. It was just like, eat whatever, stay up till 2 watching some show, whatever. We all kind of maybe had that experience in our 20s. And I just felt bad. And I remember there was like a day where I woke up and I was like, I had horrible gut issues, insomnia. You could just see it in my face. And it was like, I'm not doing this anymore. If I'm going to live the kind of life that I would hope for myself, then health can't be an obstacle. It can't be a weakness. It has to be a strength. And so that's where I kind of went on this journey to improve my health. And it was like, it wasn't like how jacked can I get, or could I run the fastest marathon? It was so much less intense. It was just like, can I figure out how to sleep well first? And then how to enjoy eating foods that are actually healthy and that actually fill me up and are nutritious.
Right.
And just kind of going on that journey over the past 6-7 years, I would say it has transformed my life. And it's helped just put me on a different path where I actually like believe a lot more is possible for me, where I didn't really believe that back then.
I mean, health is so crucial. I think a lot of us are kind of, I mean, it seems like these are simple things, right? Like being able to sleep, right? Eating decent food, right? But it is hard for a lot of people, right? Like just to kind of to do these basic things. And I think a lot of people, and this is again probably why it's resonating, for your posts are resonating with people, is because they're trying to get those basic things. So like our health, certain things are dealt to us that we can't help, right? But I think kind of what you're talking about is there are things that that we can control, right? Certain things we can't control, and then certain things we can. And you're kind of talking about taking control of those things.
Yeah, I always say control the inputs, because I mean, actually, people think that I have decent genetics, and for my family, if you listen to this, I'm sorry, but we have bad genetics. Like if you look at my family tree, most people are overweight, most people are pre-diabetic, most people have high blood pressure. Most of the men in my family especially struggle with basically everything. And so it really is controlling the inputs. And that's where I've focused. And it's not this like extreme thing. It's just, it's the little things. Like there's a treat there. Why grab it? Like, what's it going to do for you right now? And just kind of seeing the bigger picture with the decisions that you make.
And you've noticed a huge difference just in the way you feel and everything.
Yeah, I think like the physical health is a precursor to mental health.
Yeah.
And that's certainly been true for me. Just like brain fog and I just think if you don't feel good on a physical level, it's going to be a lot harder to feel good on a mental level. And if you don't feel good on a mental level, then basically everything in life gets a little bit harder. And it may impact the decisions you make, right? If you don't feel as good, then you may not feel like being as bold on a certain day, and asking a bold question that you need to ask, or doing a thing that you need to do, but it's hard to do. And so you can kind of just end up getting what you get, like settling for a life that maybe you didn't feel like you chose. And so I just think physical health, mental health, and then you put yourself in with the best odds of succeeding, or living a life that you really enjoy.
Yeah. So let's back up a little bit. I kind of want to get to know you and have our audience get to know you a little bit better. So you spent some time growing up in South Korea, is that right?
Yeah. So I lived right at the base of Timpanogos basically until I was 9. And then when I was 9, I moved to South Korea with my family. My dad was a mission president for the LDS Church in a city called Daejeon, which I'm sure no one has heard of. And I lived there for 3 years. So 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, went to an international school, and it was a wild experience.
So a few years there,
Mm-hmm.
then you moved back to Utah.
Yep.
And then you served an LDS mission in South Korea as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So how did that shape you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I remember leaving high school, and everything was like about how cool you were, and I totally got sucked into that a little bit. I like to think that I was, if you ask anyone from high school, they would say I was a nice guy. But the Korea experience for me, especially as a missionary, it showed me that I can get along with anyone if I put in the work. Because a lot of times I was stuck with someone else, all the time I was stuck with someone else. And I didn't get to choose who that person was. So I had to figure out how to get along with various types of people. But then I think just realizing that there are so many different ways to do things. And there's no one way that's right. Like, they do things so differently in Korea than we do them here. And I think just seeing that, learning a different culture, learning a different language, eating different food, like all of that was good for me to realize that there's just different ways to do things. And it kind of opened my mind as well. So
I think it's so valuable to get out of something to be able to see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously to appreciate a different culture as well, right? But I think it even helps you kind of see your home differently as well.
Totally.
Is that the case for you?
Yeah, and I travel for work a little bit too. I mean, nothing super exotic, but Utah it allows me to see Utah with fresh eyes and just know, like, we have everything we need here. It's a great place to raise kids. It's beautiful, and there's mountains everywhere. So for someone like me, it's like, it's heaven.
Yeah. So talk to us about, how you got into hiking, right? So you come back from South Korea. Is it something that you immediately jumped into? Was it always part of your life, or was it something that you came to later?
Yeah, I think I kind of got dragged into hiking a little bit with like youth groups. The first time I hiked Timp was, I think I was 12, and it was the Aspen Grove side, which is harder. And we were sleeping at Emerald Lake, and we had big packs, and I was wearing my mom's like boots that didn't fit me and just had the worst equipment. And it was so hard. I remember it being like, that was the hardest thing I had ever done. And it wasn't fun, actually, at least not that time.
Yeah.
But it helped me kind of build some confidence. I remember coming back when I was 12 and being like, if I could do that, I could probably do a lot of things. Like it just kind of, helped me out that way. And then, I had a group of friends that we still hike together to this day. That we started just hiking when I was kind of 14, 15. And we would go do Timpanogos. And now I think about it, I'm like, should my parents have let me just like loose in the mountains with my friends? Like, the phones we had didn't work,
right,
anything compared to what phones work in the mountains today. And yeah, so I kind of got dragged into the hiking, and then I fell in love with it in my teenage years, just hiking with friends. And then, it fell back into it. Once I got kind of on my health journey, it was like, let's go hike.
Yeah. And to excuse your parents, like that's kind of how things were.
It's actually a beautiful thing. I'm glad that that's the way that it was.
Stranger Things energy, kids just out on their own.
Ride your bikes.
Exactly.
Yep. I remember one of the times, actually, it's just a side story. We did Timp, and it was like June 3rd, right?
Yeah.
So in my teenage brain, it's summer. It's hot everywhere you look. Timp's safe, like go hike up there.
Yeah.
But on the backside of Timp, it's winter.
Yeah.
And I remember I was wearing Chaco sandals, and it was like 10 of us friends, and we went, and no one told us, we just went up there and had the snowiest day of my entire life, and my feet were blue when we got back. But yeah.
So let's talk about this. You had a recent post, maybe it was today, where you talked about basically planning for the resistance or the pain in life and on a hike, right? Like just kind of knowing that that's part of it, right? And then if you expect it, then somehow you can work through it better, right? So I guess if you could kind of talk about how hiking relates to that, both on just a physical level, right? In terms of you're doing a hard thing, right? And obviously it gets easier the more you do it, but it is a hard thing, right? And then the other part is, and this speaks to your format, right? Where you're just kind of talking things out. I feel like hikes are times where we're feeling the physical stuff, but we're also kind of we're finally able to think, right, clearly. And so that can also mean like thinking about hard things that we're dealing with or struggling with. So I guess if you could just speak to both of those levels and how hiking impacts.
Yeah, I think on the physical level, obviously there's like the preparation side, right? And all of that. And we don't need to talk about that unless you want to go down that path, like what I actually do to go have a good hike. But when I go hike with people that don't hike a lot, they think, oh, you hike a lot, it probably doesn't hurt at all for you. Like, this is normal. And I'm like, it hurts every time.
Yeah.
When you go 10, 15 miles and it's rocky and it's a long adventure and it's a long journey, it hurts. The difference is that I know what to expect.
Yeah.
And I've been here before. I've felt this pain. And so it's not a surprise for me. And I think other people that don't hike a lot, when they realize that someone that hikes like crazy is also feeling pain, it's like, oh, yeah. Okay. Well, if you're feeling pain, let's go. I'll feel some pain too. Yeah. And it will be, it's part of the reward too. You got to pay the price for the adventure and the beauty and to be up there, right? Because you can't drive a car up there. There's no tram. So if you want to go enjoy a truly beautiful place, you have to pay the price. And the price is a little bit of pain. And I think that translates really well from like the physical side to kind of the mental side. In the last probably 5 years, I've realized that all the things that I want to do, I'm a big planner. So it's like New Year's, I'm like, I want to do this and this and this. And then whenever there was pain or resistance or something happened that I wasn't expecting, it was like, throw your hands in the air. What the heck? Like, I had this plan and clearly it wasn't a good plan because XYZ happened. And just realizing it's kind of like the hike, like anything that's worthwhile, it's going to hurt at some point. And just one of my favorite quotes is from Anthony Hopkins. And he says, I expect nothing and I accept everything. And it makes life so much more simple. So I think just accepting, like, I'm on this journey and I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I can just keep going forward. That's my choice and deal with what comes. And I think just kind of, shifting my frame of mind from like, things are just going to work out to like, I might have to make them work out.
Yeah.
On with whatever path or journey I'm on, physical or mental.
And that some of that, I mean, to your point, does make it more rewarding, right? I mean, the example you gave, like, imagine you could just drive up to the top of Timp. It changes the entire experience, right? You get up to the top, especially, when I came back from the East Coast for 15 years, I was gone and hiked it and the altitude and everything, and I hadn't hiked like that for a long time. Like when you get up there, like you just like, it feels amazing just because you've worked so hard to get there, right? And I don't think the experience would be anything like that if it was easy, right? So
totally agree.
That's I think that's a really good point, and kind of also the point that you made about not always knowing what to expect and accepting that, right? It's almost like
which is scary. And I think like most people like don't want to admit that or bring it up, but it is scary.
Yeah.
And it's okay that it's scary.
Yeah.
But we all have to be brave. Like, and having little kids too, we talk about stuff like this too. And it's funny because I'm like trying to guide these little kids through their lives. And I'm like, actually, everything I'm telling them is pretty good advice for me too. And for me to give it to them, I need to make sure that I'm actually a good example of it. Otherwise, I don't think they're going to listen. Maybe they shouldn't listen, you know? So.
Yeah, I had this like thought a while back, like I guess when my kids were young, your instinct is always to protect your kids, protect them, right? And you do need to protect your kids sometimes, right? But sometimes you also need to make them strong enough to get through something and not protect them, right? Allow them to kind of work through something. And I think it's something we need to remind ourselves too, right?
Totally.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you know, when you're going through a hard thing, it's never fun.
It's not fun.
Right. And that's why, you know, growth is so uncomfortable.
But yeah, I think all the best things, there's an element of being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's hard to accept for a while, I think, until you just kind of let go. You're like, okay, you know, like there's just going to be a lot of things that make me uncomfortable. But I can choose there's two things I can choose, right? Or have control over. It's my actions and my reactions. And I think when it comes to just uncomfortable things, how you react is really big. And at first, it might be a horrible reaction. And that's fine. That's part of the process. But the goal is to, over time, be able to react in a better way to things that are uncomfortable. And then I think to be able to embrace them, you know, like it's uncomfortable to go to the top of Timp, but I embrace it now because I know what is on the other side of that experience. And it's so worth it.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Mike. We'll continue the discussion in our next episode, including some of Mike's best fitness recommendations and how hiking can be a powerful form of meditation. Thanks again to Mike for joining us. You can follow him at Rife on Instagram. Escape the Noise is produced by Timpanogos Hiking Co. I'm your host, Joe Vogel. A big thank you to Kai Bradford for his assistance with scheduling and production, to the Wildfires for our intro music, and to Silicon Slopes and Weston Tanner for hosting us and helping us make it all happen. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you again next episode.